You're listening to Health Coach Conversations, a podcast where our conversations help health coaches all around the world to level up our businesses and to get more clients. Hello and welcome. This is Kathy Sikora, founder of the Health Coach Group, and I am visiting with Diana Rice today. With over 2 decades of experience as a BIPOC therapist, Diana Rice is a seasoned professional at the forefront of mental health and holistic well-being. As a licensed mental health counselor and certified integrative mental health professional, Diana has dedicated her career to helping individuals find balance and healing. Married for 29 years and a loving parent of 4 children and 5 grandchildren, she brings a wealth of life experience and empathy to her practice. With 15 years as a dedicated preschool teacher, she understands the importance of early childhood development and the impact it has on mental health. Diana is not only a compassionate therapist, but also an accomplished author. She has authored 2 poetry books, each adorned with her own digital artwork. The first book, Wrath to Riches, Justice to Gems, has already captivated readers, and she has a second book coming out that will be released this year. Through her Florida-based practice, Through the Valley Therapy, Diana takes an evidence-based, innovative, and functional approach to address the complex challenges of mental health. Her expertise is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, CPTSD, is coupled with a commitment to Christian integrative therapy, offering a holistic path to well-being. I think you're going to enjoy our conversation as much as I do. So have you been doing telehealth?
Yes. Well, I was forced into it in 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this year, for the last year, you've been doing telehealth instead of working in the school?
Yeah, since 2020, September of 2021 is when.
Oh, you've been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm. But it was hybrid.
So have the schools been referring customers to you?
Some schools do. It's more now I'm trying to shift from adolescents to young adults and older, like 25 to 35. I'm finding myself, I would say, coming in more and more. You know, I'm trying to think. My oldest client is probably 45. So yeah, I have up to 45.
And I would still consider that young adult, but it's really kind of middle-aged, isn't it?
Yeah, right? Like
I am if I consider 45 young adult.
That's so true. So yeah, and then I won't turn away an adolescence if a school refers and I'm the one who feels like I can actually, if I feel and the parents, because this is why I've shifted as well, is because I have way too many parents coming to me and they want to fix their child, but they were not willing to do what it takes within themselves to deal with the situation. Like, you know what I mean?
And you don't really the term fix your child either, do you?
No. It's not only that, it's just the village that raises the next generation needs to take responsibility. And many don't. We blame the young people, but we're the ones raising them.
Right.
And so that was just working because most of my career has been in, I would say, in the Broward County school system, public and private. So
you say that you want to work with young adults, right?
I do. I want to work with, because I don't want to deal with family therapy. There's professionals that have been, educated in that. That's their specialty. That is their niche. And I respect it. That's why I like collaborations, like understanding, like I know where I can actually help and not say yes to everybody. Because us health coaches or anyone in the helping field, we want to help everybody. That's what we went into it for, because we want to help. And it's having that understanding of what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are.
Well, it seems to me too, if you're working with young adults, you're getting them before they mess up their kids, right?
Well, hopefully if they don't have kids, like I have young adults that have children already, but Yeah, it's more of getting them to understand someone has to stop the intergenerational trauma. That's how because I am a complex PTSD specialist and understanding intergenerational trauma and just that's why I'm a holistic therapist. And because we want to diagnose everything, but that's fine. We get the diagnosis and then we get whatever is needed, but then we're just managing symptoms the whole time instead of getting to causes. And that is what's
And to
important.
eliminate the problem instead
Right.
of just suppress the symptoms.
Exactly.
Will you still work with PTSD?
Okay, so I want to clarify which type I am capable of doing because, like, I do have veterans that try to come to me, and I will refer them out just because I'm not equipped for that and I'm not going to fake it either. But CPTSD, complex PTSD is something because I had to wrestle with that and get through my own. So I know what that is. And so it is, you've heard the ACE score about the ACE scores, the ACE testing, right? Adverse
Mhm.
childhood experience. And so that's like one of the many assessments I do in my practice. That's like number one, because if you have anything over 4, then you have CPTSD. Sometimes I have clients that have say 0, 0, 0, but then when we get down to the nitty gritty of things, they're like, oh my gosh, I was spiritually abused and I didn't even know. Or you see where I'm getting at? Because I'm a faith-based practice as well. So I get a lot of people that come in and they're having these symptoms and situations. And when we get into the root causes, it's not about blaming or shaming because that's the thing. It's like when you have a community or a village that raised you, it's trying to find what the narrative that you've kept in your mind for so long. But at the same time, like you have to go through a process of the grieving or the understanding of, not to put you into a victim mentality, but to get you to understand, okay, everyone falls short of the glory of God. And that being said,
Yes,
it's
we just do.
right because we just do. Like, so when you have situations where was perfection, expected. So like I said, my clients are a diverse group, and being an inner city urban therapist for so long, and coming from that because I am a Black Indigenous person of color, right, which is BIPOC for short. I had to learn how to find resources for my clients to get them from just survival mode to thrive, to get them out of the mentality of you're stuck from that fixed
Mhm.
mindset to the growth mindset. So that took a lot of work. I mean, it's years and years and years of me gathering. And that's basically what I do. Like the other day, Kathy I asked my son, one of my sons, what do you think I'm an expert at? Right. And this is the son that built the Polidarium. And he had to sit there and think about it for a long time. I'm like, dude, man, I've been working for you don't think I'm an expert at anything. He goes, you're really great at socializing, like you have social skills like I've never seen in another human being.
You
And
do. I would agree with him.
thank you. And then he says, and you have intuition. And I go, well, what's that mean? He goes, your intuitive skills and your social skills together. This is why you are really good at what you do, because it's not like you create new things or like I'm a scientist or I'm creating my own theories and books and everything. I just have such intuition on the human that I know how to gather the resources and bring it to them. And I'm like, okay, now it's up to you to do something with it.
You must
And
have some empathy too.
girl, it's a blessing and a curse. It is being a highly sensitive therapist, high HSP. When I say high, like way too much, that's why I had to learn to balance because, especially with this job, like I almost quit like a whole bunch of times since 2020. And
Yeah,
that's what
I have a friend that went through that and she could not leave it behind anywhere. It's hard, isn't it?
It is. That's why some of us burn out, because if we go into these helping fields, right? And
Mhm.
that is something that I had to work hard. Like I go to my own therapist, I have to.
Good.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one thing I would say anyone that's listening to. It's like everybody needs a good listening to in a non-judgmental, safe place.
Yeah.
Not family and not friends, someone that is trained to actually understand and help you with whatever the goals or situation that you're having that's coming up for you.
Mhm.
No.
So we talked earlier, and you were a little bit concerned about hiring people to work for you because of HIPAA. And you wanted to make sure whoever worked for you understood HIPAA and portrayed you in the tightest, what's the word for it? Uh, oh, you would know that's the word I can't think of when you're supposed to tie yourself to a rule. Anyway, you want somebody that work for you that will follow the rules and knows the rules, right?
Yes.
As you go forward, do you want to work one-on-one with people, or do you want to expand into other things?
Well, Kathy and I met at this amazing meeting, and it was so refreshing to find like minded humans because to me, I'm in a lot of networking groups, honestly, as a therapist, but it's really hard to find those because we're so inundated with insurance and HIPAA and rules and your
Law.
license,
Hmm.
right? And understanding and I take confidentiality super, super serious. Like that is something that was put in me probably since I was 12 years old in my peer counseling class, like
Hmm.
confidentiality. So finding like-minded people that understand something that goes beyond the label and the disabling, because that's how
Hmm.
I see it, the nocebo effect that's out there. Like you give the person the label, and that's a lot of in community mental health, like to get paid in this field, in whatever medical field, right? If you take insurance, you have to hurry up with the diagnosis. And honestly, though, you can't truly get into a diagnosis until because all these symptoms overlap in all the diagnoses. So it's just, okay, get the diagnosis so you can get your insurance claim and then put it in there. And then let's go straight to the medications where medicine has its place, but it should be the last resort, not the first. And I was taught quickly that it was like, okay, you're seeing the psychiatrist, here's your label, your diagnosis, here's your, and now the client starts feeling like that's what they are.
Yeah, it's not great to label them, is it?
It's so, well, I honestly, this is why I'm so grateful. I'm in a place finally where I don't take insurance. Diagnosis happens, but only if the client truly needs it for whatever it is. And see, right now I'm a little wary saying that because I'm like, oh my gosh, are they going to take my license away?
Mhm.
But with the HIPAA compliance, so I would want to have someone work with. I'm thinking about starting a group practice maybe in the future. Right now, I mean, January 1st, I started a blog. I actually signed with a company in Boca Raton to start my own podcast called the Holistic Counselor Podcast.
Oh, cool.
And I'm hoping that to bring people, because what I'm trying to do there, I want to bring an acupuncturist in that talks about the science behind acupuncture along with mental health. I want to bring an Ayurvedic scientist in to talk about Ayurvedic medicine and mental health. I'm trying to get humans out there to understand there's more than just this narrow minded Western, sorry, because I have doctors in my family, Western medical field mindset. Does that make sense? And
Mhm.
that's why I loved where we went and how, like there was people like understood when I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah. You know what? You talked about how a health coach could help. And there's a lot of there's a scope of practice for everybody, and you're a licensed scope of practice, and health coaches are not licensed, and they have a scope of practice, and they need to stay in it, stay out of trouble, because they are health coaches who deal with lifestyle, and you are somebody who can diagnose if you need to. So, how would you see the ideal relationship between you and a health coach that was working with you to help your patients?
Yes. So what, and I forgot the podcast I heard this on, but someone stated, and it was like, yes, that's beautifully said. She stated that licensed mental health professional deals with the traumas of the past, deals with those hard places, right? And when they get to the point of not just like surviving and they're right there at the point that they're ready to thrive, that's where a health coach would come in, like a nutritionist or whoever will come in and now help them thrive. They don't deal with the past stuff like that or the hardcore traumas or diagnosis or anything like that. The coach is coaching, kind of like on a sports team. It's if your football player has a broken leg, you're not the coach is going to go there and fix the broken leg. It would be the physical therapist or whoever it is, that the doctor, the medic that's there. So it's like learning to collaborate, because I do know, being in the field I am in, I've heard the frustrations of the coaches, like those that are coaching, and some of the harm that it could do, because the coach will come along thinking they're a therapist, and they are not, unless they're truly, truly certified and trained in a specific, like CPTSD or eating disorders, or, you know what I mean? And that takes years of not just book smart or a degree. It takes years of developing that understanding with experience with that clientele.
We have in all of our programs, we have a page on how do you tell if a client has an eating disorder, and then what you should do. And it isn't that you should help the person deal with the eating disorder. You should send them to a specialist.
Right.
But the health coach can work with them on getting some exercise and getting those endorphins going and getting excited about things again, and eating well and sleeping well, and, all the things, the lifestyle changes that could affect and help your work with the patient, right?
Yes.
And they're not a patient to the health coach, they're a client. And to you, they're a patient when you're working.
Well, honestly, for me, they're a client as well. That's the thing I had to shift my mentality onto. It's like, I don't think, because I worked in the school system, it was my students. It was never.
That's how you saw them.
Yeah, always a student, because I went from a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapist school, public school in Broward County. Everyone in that school had to be seen by a psychiatrist to go into that school. So it wasn't a behavioral school. It was like a CBT public school. That's back in 2000 and I want to say 4. Almost 20 years ago. That was my 1-year internship that I did. And I was the only registered intern. Everybody else was therapists, marriage, family therapists, social work, and a psychiatrist and psychiatric nurses. So I learned a lot that year, a lot. And I also learned a lot of what I will never do to anybody.
You learn what not to do.
For real. And then after that, my experience was in the nonprofit sector, and I would go into these homes in the inner city of Broward County and to help the clients out. And they were all mostly adolescents. I was known as the adolescent. I kind of said the teen of queens. I mean, the queen of teens. Sorry. But so I worked in the neighborhoods like I came from, like that's how I grew up. I grew up with a single immigrant mother, not from this country. And I grew up in New York, came in Broward at 12 years old. And, it was like lack of resource. That's what I realized. Lack of education and lack of resources is like the thing that kind of differentiates what happens to a human.
And I think I've seen more, this is a good word to forget, more people who look unkindly upon immigrants in this area than I've ever seen before. I can't hardly believe it.
Yeah, it
If
is.
somebody will say something, I'll just look and say, "What's your point?"
Oh, and I have a lot of people that say a lot of things to me because sometimes they forget where I'm from. I don't know. Or they just, I guess, because I'm able to go into a place and people just feel really relaxed around me in a way, I guess, except for my husband. He never feels real. No, I'm just
You keep him on his toes.
I do. Keeping on his own. And at home, I'm like, I gotta get this done. Like I'm high strung, but when I'm out, I just see, the human being that needs that understanding, that unconditional positive regard that Carl Rogers taught. That's like the basics of my foundation in the therapeutic services is Carl Rogers, and then I would say Dr. Bessel van der Kolk and other Dr. Gabor Mate, just to me, they understand mental health the way I see it as well. But anyway, it's just back to what you were saying. When a person looks at another without knowing them, a lot of assumptions come to the forefront of their mind. And when they do that, that just shows a reflection of them,
Right.
not of the person that they're making that stereotype or assumption of, right? And
Exactly. It does not make, but when you're a kid, I don't think you know that.
well, that you pick up, listen, that's the thing with teenagers that I've learned. Like, I have learned how to ask so many questions. That's why when you saw me out of my office, I'm like, da, 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 like all excited. I'm getting to just be free and not have to sit and listen and then, have to, and not that I don't love doing that. It's just when I'm in a therapeutic session, it is all 99% about my client. And I have to be on. And that's why, as a highly sensitive, intuitive therapist, I have to do a lot of work in between the clients. That's why I only take a certain amount.
Hmm.
And that's why I do a lot of praying and Bible reading. Honestly, I do in between the clients. And I won't take a client unless I really know that like we have rapport right away. Because if we don't have rapport, because I had to be forced back in the day, like seeing these clients and, it was like hitting your head against the wall because they weren't ready. They weren't ready. But I want to go back to what you were saying about like when people make those assumptions of others. Okay. Because it goes both ways. Honestly, I've seen it happen in all different religious content, racial, and I hate saying racial because honestly, we're a human race. It's one,
Right.
and people forget that, you know? It's understanding like where are you getting that information from? Who's telling you this? And why are you believing it? Is it because you have nothing, you know what I mean? Like you just don't know any better or you just trust this situation? And honestly, being a woman of faith, nowhere in the Bible does it say to trust humans.
Exactly.
If someone wants to correct me and show me the verse where it says trust humans, I would love to see it. I have not found that yet. And not saying I got to be careful with the trust situation because we need to trust to be vulnerable and have relationships. But I'm talking about like why do we automatically just trust everything automatically like that? Like, how do we have critical thinking?
You
Is
have to have critical thinking now with all the content that is coming from all different directions, and it's coming from all different places and all different feelings and all different backgrounds, and most of it's not right. It's been colored by their feelings.
it is, it's been, well, digital media and just everything. I mean, I can make things look real. I could take and edit something. And I mean, honestly,
Oh yeah, nothing can be real too with AI now. I mean, they can take a person and make it look like they're saying something.
Right. So this is what I want to, this is what I challenge people. Cognitive behavioral therapy, that's what we do. We challenge thought process
Mhm.
and try to renew the mind and get humans to understand their own power that they do have, that's sitting there, that was given to you by the creator of the universe. And it is sitting in it, and also dealing with your own stuff, because none of us are perfect. And having that understanding, like, we need to take responsibility for ourselves, no matter how much pain it is.
Mhm.
And how do you do that? Well, hire me and I'll help you. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll fix you.
No, no. I will give you some tools. I don't know if I'll be the one doing the fixing. Oh,
But you know what? We were talking about the roles of health coaches and mental health practitioners. There's one other place that's outside all of this realm, and it is a religious person or a minister. And I know that the laws allow ministers to do counseling that health coaches can't do. And I was a Stephen minister for a while, way back,
mhm.
and they train people really well. Thankfully, one of the things that they train you to do is to send somebody to the right person to help them. But even so, that's a little scary. Um, but tell me how your faith comes into it, especially when you're working in a school that's not a private religious school. How do you deal with that?
I go back to the unconditional positive regard by Carl Rogers. And there's a book called On Becoming a Human. I learned a lot in that book back in the day when, I was getting my master's degree. How do I deal with that? It's not about. Listen, I have all denominations that come in, and some other religions that come in as well. In they hire me as their therapist. To me, it's about walking the walk, right? Of my belief system. It is not putting my belief system on the other human. That's not what they're hiring me for. They're hiring me to do a job, right? What I say on my website, right? Or what I say that I can do. And that is what they hire me for. And that being said, it's just like, I always ask, okay, some of them have come to me and said, all right, I know you're a Christian therapist, but I'd rather have the science part. Can you just do the science part? I'm like, yeah, sure. And then little as we get to know each other and we're working on that, I'm like, well, I'm praying for you. And I'm allowed to say that. And honestly, in the public school system, if the student brought it up and asked, I still wouldn't give them a lot, because it's not about me. Like when I'm in a session with a client, it's not about me. I do give a little bit here and there. That's my intuitiveness, is where I know where I'm going to share a little bit to help them along so they don't feel like they're alone in whatever situation.
So
Right.
it's more about calling upon your faith for you to help them than it is to call upon any kind of faith to pass on to them, right?
Right. It's not
Yeah.
about that at all. It is, and then me and my prayer time is for that. Okay, Lord, you have brought this human to me. What is it that they need? Can you do something, please? And if they're curious, if they're like, hey, do you have a Bible? I honestly had an atheist, and he asked for a Bible verse. And the only reason he asked for it, when they were meeting in person, I would give cards out, like these little cards. And he put it in his wallet because he wanted to give it to, because he was like the head of a department, and he found out that someone was a Christian there, and he wanted to give it to them. And I'm like, that's sweet. He carried around his wallet for a long time. I still got it. I got to see this person. But to me, okay, who knows what's going to happen? That's between the human and the creator of the universe. And that's their personal relationship. That's what I try to get people to understand in the spiritual aspect of things, is that you have a reason on this earth. You're going to have to choose to figure that out and be still and understand these things, and that you're not stuck in this narrow-minded thinking. It goes beyond. It's a mystery. If we could tidy it up and put it in a box and put a nice tight bow on it, then we have become God. I don't ever
Yeah.
want.
And you know what? We all try to do that. My business is more to educate because health coaches are also allowed to do that. And so we work with evidence based things, and we're working on a module on grief. And that is so hard to do without faith because I cannot even imagine when my dad died. I thought about him playing baseball with the apostles, and it made me smile. That's how you get through it.
Oh,
It's
seriously.
yeah, it's hard to do things sometimes, especially things like that without bringing the faith into it. We're still working on how we're going to do that. We're going to try to do one without. And I have somebody that works with me that's Jewish, and then I'm Catholic. And so the two together, we can usually,
I love that.
yeah.
Well, you cover the whole entire Bible. Well, the Torah and the
Yeah.
all. It's
Yeah.
just
And
like,
everybody knows the Bible better than the Catholics because we did the New Testament and that was it.
yeah. It's just, and I was raised Catholic, by the way.
Were you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All the way until I was like 21. And then I went into the new age hardcore. And then I would say by 29 is when I became a full-fledged disciple of Jesus Christ, you know? And then I realized, wait a minute, like if we keep fighting and arguing about denominations,
Right.
we're not,
But
we're
it's just like with your kids, it's how you were raised and that's all ingrained. And then you have to start thinking, some of that's malarkey.
we have a lot of young adults that are disentangling because there's a big movement out there called the deconstruction movement, and the church
Yeah,
really like freaked out about it. But at the same time, can we all just become responsible of ourselves and actually do what the Word of God is saying for us to do as believers? Because if we did those things, take care of the widows and the orphans and love one another, and actually did everything that Jesus Christ told us to do, then we would not have to have these fights amongst each other. We're wasting time. There's a hurting world out there, right?
yeah,
And whatever, if we health coaches, if you're listening right now, let me tell you, you're put in this place for such a time as this in order for you to help that other human. But just make sure that you have accountability, make sure that you're dealing with your own things that come up, because those are stored away since the womb until you really figure it out. And if you see something like a pattern repeating itself, then you haven't learned the lesson yet.
yeah. You know what? In Stephen Ministry, we had something called supervision, where you would work with somebody and then you would go back and then you would get feedback from everybody, on in the supervisory team. I think it would be good for everybody to have supervision, to have health coach supervisors. I think it would be good for doctors to have. And my husband said when he was at the cardiologist, he saw this tiny little room and all the cardiologists were in there huddled around one little desk, meeting about something. And well, good. That's great. That's what everybody should do.
Right, as long as it's like, to me though, like when I hear that, as long as whoever's the facilitator or the leader is a servant leader, because we have way too many
Right.
humans there that are ego strokers, that it's all
Mhm.
about themselves
Who's going to
pretending.
be right?
Yes, or pretending to care about their team, but it's really about them and not the servitude of their calling of that. Because if we're in the healthcare field, right, or the helping field, then we need to understand what that means. Like, first, do no harm,
Right.
and having that, because I think what has happened in these fields that we're in, is it goes from the attention. It's the same with politics. Like, you have that, and I'm not going to talk politics, but it's
Yeah.
it,
Yuck.
it's uh it's understanding, like, your intention of your heart was to mean well. Say the person that's just the local whatever mayor or the local like commissioner, you're there, and then the next thing you know, oh, I like this power, and it keeps going and growing and going and growing, and then here you are, and now it's all about you and your whatever it is for you and how much money you can make. And it says the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil, not the love of money. I mean, It is the love of money. I'm sorry, but it's the
I
love.
know what you meant. Go
No,
ahead.
you know what I
Yeah.
meant. It's the root of evil. It's not that money is evil.
Yeah.
That's it. It's
It's the
not
way you
that
feel about it that is.
the intention of your heart. So, what is the intention of your heart, listener? Honestly, like, why do you want to be a health coach or why are you in this field? And that's where I think you just every morning waking up, hopefully, if you're a health coach, you probably have a ritual, a routine, or a rhythm, right? A health, right? You would hopefully
Yep.
have. Where in that ritual, rhythm, and routine do you have time to be still and know and actually look within your own heart and really understand your why? And that to me, like, that's what I ask my clients. And they're like, whoa, like, that's too deep. And I'm like, yeah, but if you get deep like that, then you'll get the stuff out and then you'll flourish. But you're
Mhm.
just not surviving, with your head above water. You're trying to go from surviving to thriving.
Yeah. Journaling works like that too. You can get clarity with what pops out of your head and into that pen.
No, for sure. Journaling is one of the most amazing tools. Breath work is another amazing tool.
Yeah, they say breath work, you can stock that up, store that away for resilience for later on when you need it. That's nice.
Yeah, there's an app that see. This is where I'm thinking because I find free stuff for my clients. There's an app called the Pause app, PAUSE app. It is faith based, but I love it because they have a 3 minute, a 5 minute, a 10 minute, and it's not like pushing anything down your throat. It just makes you sit and be still and breathe. And listen, your mind is going to go somewhere at all times, most of the time when you're awake, honestly. And you get to train your mind. You do. You get to choose. That's what free will is, the choice.
Right.
So it's like, what do you want to choose? You know, it's just, I don't know. These are the things that I would tell my teenagers all the time back in the day. They're like, wait, what? And I'm like, you're not stuck in this neighborhood if you don't want to be stuck in this neighborhood. It's going to take some hard work and rewiring of your brain because you think that's all there is. There's a big world out there. Like, what do you want to do? Because I truly believe we're born with a personality. Like, God makes all of
Mhm.
us with different talents, different gifts, different personalities on purpose. We are the body, right? And some people are the feet, some people are the hands, some people are the nose, but we come together to do something good.
Mhm.
So if yeah, that's where I get frustrated. And that's what kept me sane through the whole pandemic and everything. Because let me tell you, I have a crazy picture that I'll be posting on one of my blogs of me where I am masked with a plastic over my head that they had me wear.
At school?
Yeah. Because it was a public school. Yeah.
Yeah. It was, the kids that went through that had a tougher time. I had grandkids. Of course, my ones in England, they had their dad home and he taught them so that they were way ahead in math for the next, but and but there were people that just didn't have
Oh, no.
any kind of guidance or anything. And they kind of went off got forgotten.
Well, they were forgotten, and what I saw that year in 2020 was probably the most. I mean, I saw some stuff being a therapist in the inner city, but that year there were so many suicides and just deaths and
Adult
just
and children,
yeah, yeah,
both.
yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, when right after, I don't know, I don't want to depress your your audience.
We sent out coloring books. We sent out coloring books that gave health tips and sent them to nursing homes because they were stuck in little rooms with nobody to talk to. We got crayons from Walmart for almost nothing. And I had a bunch of markers. I sent those out with it too. So,
I love hearing that. That is amazing. And let's go. I just want to go back to a BIPOC community because I know, like, health coaches, I don't know how some health coaches give back But to me, no matter where you are, volunteering or just understanding that there is a need, no matter what you're thinking or the news you're listening to, because that's where the thoughts come. If you're listening to the news, oh, the borders or whatever, and this and that, and you're making assumptions, or I don't know how many times I had to teach people when you're on the road and you're seeing the homeless person, and I'm like, no, you have no idea their story. You have
Right.
no idea their story. So stop making assumptions because you're
Right.
thinking that that's the story. And where did you get that narrative? So it's challenging that story constantly. Oh, we don't know. Okay, where is the compassion? To give back somehow, pick one organization in your local community because it starts from within. We cannot save the world. I can't save the world. No health coach can save the world, but we can start within wherever we are to bloom where we're planted. So if you want to help the BIPOC community, which I highly suggest because I love what you just said about the coloring book, why not create something maybe, to go help that local Boys and Girls Club
Mhm.
or that other local organization or go to an inner city church or school or whatever that's around you and say, how can I help? Or maybe have a free talk or
Mhm.
once every quarter that you go in and just, whoever wants to line up, here's a pamphlet of these are the healthy foods in a grocery store that are affordable,
There you
right?
go. Eat local and save some money too. I mean, it sounds expensive, but there's cheaper ways to do it. And you don't have to do big things. I found this quote from Mother Teresa that was one of our old Facebook posts, and it said, just leave everybody being happy. And so if you went into every conversation with the idea that you're going to leave and the person that you're talking to is going to be happier when you leave, that's something little that everybody can do. It doesn't cost money. It just takes you thinking about it.
But to me, okay, so there's a mental wellness ministry at the church that I did start because it's like, all right, I have to give back. I have to give back. I just started at the church about 2 years ago. And I'm like, all right, how do I give back as a mental health counselor and, help the community at the same time? My icky guy about it, right? It's the four different areas. If you don't know what icky guy is, look it up. Ikigai. And it's a Japanese format of understanding your purpose. And I was trying to figure out like what can I do and not take so much time because I don't have that much time. I have to have boundaries in my life. I have a job. I'm trying to build this practice. I have bills to pay. It's like that balancing. So I talked to the pastors and they're like, all right, that mental wellness ministry sounds good. So what I do is twice a year. So far, this is what we're doing is hopefully every quarter, but so far it's going to be twice a year. I try to gather therapists, licensed therapists, like speakers and everything that will donate their time to come in for a 2-hour workshop. And it's a certain topic and questions like I curate the questions because I don't want it to get out of control. I want it to make sure it's in. And
Mhm.
then the people leave with resources and every therapist has their table. So guess what? They're donating their time, but they're forming a mass community, right, to help. And then people could go home with a resource or if they can afford or have that insurance that therapist has. So it's a win-win for everybody. And to break the stigma in churches, because that's one thing I'm passionate about is making people understand in any denomination or any religion that, listen, you can have Jesus and a therapist, just like you can have Jesus and a doctor, right? Or Jesus and a nutritionist or a health coach. You can have both and just trying to break the stigma because there's a lot of people suffering in the churches with guilt and shame and depression and anxiety. And guess what? It could be a lack of nutrition. And that's why they're feeling depressed.
Could be that they're not moving around.
Yes. Right. Because we're in everything has shifted and changed in our
Mhm.
society since the Industrial Revolution. So
Yeah,
I'm just like, why can't we all just get along?
right. It sounds really easy. It should be really easy. But we all have our problems that get in the way. I call them barnacles. I think we need to scrape barnacles off a couple of times a year.
Yeah, and that's it. Sometimes you just need a good listening to. Sometimes the anger or the hurt or the pain that makes someone gruff. Honestly, that's why I'm a certified integrated mental health professional. It's like the holistic approach. Like,
Mhm.
okay, this you have anger, but what is it really? Did you get your blood work done? Okay. Did you get, what has happened in the last year? What's going on? Things are rising up and you don't even know it. Oh, you're allergic to a certain food? Oh, you see? That's where I love the health coach part with the therapist, especially with licensed professionals that have no clue about nutrition, just like doctors, some doctors. They're so like narrow-minded and they just think it's like this one thing. And I'm like, did you ask, like how they're eating?
Yeah, that my physical therapist, I had messed my arm up really good, and I went to a physical therapist down here, and she said, "I sure wish I knew about nutrition and how that could help you heal." Well, I can tell you how to learn.
I haven't taught it either. And that's
Yeah.
beautiful. That's another thing we could do in collaboration is like at for both ends, at a networking meeting or something like when we have the Broward Mental Health Counselor Association meetings, have someone like a health coach that comes in and just teaches that part,
Mhm.
or vice versa. A
Mhm.
whole bunch of health coaches that need to come in and learn what ACEs is,
Yeah.
right? And going, okay, or like youth mental health or whatever. I mean, there's so
Mhm.
many things that health coaches can collaborate with other professionals,
We
you know.
created a program way back. I mean, it took a long time. It took a couple of years to put it together, and it started out as Millennial Matters, and then the millennials got too old for it. So now it's just Life Matters, and it's for young adults for all the things that they didn't learn that they probably should have learned at home or in school, like budgeting and insurance and taking care of their bodies and going to the doctor and how often, because you don't I mean, probably how many kids don't go to the doctor like they should,
They don't
don't go
trust.
to the dentist like they should. And, so all of that is in there. That was a fun, but it was really important. So it took a long time.
I want to know more about that, Kathy. Is that a program someone can purchase, or how's that work?
It is, yeah. We sell it and then for reuse, and then you use it with your customers, and yeah. And now the thing is, most of them we send out sequentially in modules, and they go through it, they do the workbooks, and then they move on. Well, with this one, I wanted to have it be so that they could go through it, do the workbooks, but I also wanted it to be something that they could keep as a manual so that when, maybe if the life insurance thing didn't come up right now, they could go back to it and find out about it. Or if we have a bit on spiritual and how to investigate that and some other parts, and that they can, and there comes a time, I mean, for almost all of us, that we start to question what we've thought all along. And then you go on this journey to learn about everything. And so it tells you how to do that. And
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do have, except, you could call it two different things: existential crisis. I'm not even saying the word right. Existential,
Existential, yeah.
or the dark night of the soul, right? It's
Mhm,
those things but when you get through that, it's like, wow, you just become more, and it's not a set thing. Okay, you go through it, it can happen again. It's just, that's part
mhm,
of life. We have to have people understand, like, you are going to feel sad and it's okay to feel sad. It is, when you get stuck in it for weeks and weeks, then okay, we need to realize what's the root cause of that and how are we going to fix it, because it could be nutrition or exercise, and actually exercise and nutrition have been proven that it's a lot better than an antidepressant. Dr.
oh,
Daniel
yeah,
that all the
yeah.
time.
I was trying to think of the name of that book. There's a book called Smart that talks about that, and they put all the science in there about how movement and exercise can improve your intelligence. It can improve your, daily work. It definitely improves your attitude.
So
Yeah.
that's definitely something I did not learn in my courses ever in college, was just the importance of nutrition, um, period. Like, that wasn't taught to me. I mean, you have that, what I learned in like public school, the this food pyramid. But even when I look at the food pyramid now, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's all poison.
And we redid the food pyramid. It isn't a food pyramid anymore. It's a plate. In Europe, it's a food pyramid, but that kind of looks better than the plate here. So,
but it's just understanding like what you're putting in your system in all your five senses. That's something
right.
with my clients. I'm like, how are you using your five senses? And then I'm like, can you name them? You know? And I start with
that's a good one. That's fun.
Yeah. And they're just like, wait, what? And I'm like, yeah, what are your five senses? And they have to think about it. And then they say it. And I'm like, how are you utilizing them? Are you utilizing them to hurt yourself or heal yourself? And then they have to answer that question with me. And then they're like, oh, and people are like, well, and that's
good. That's a good question.
It's just basic things I had to learn when I was working with adolescents, and that they would understand it, because most of them, not most, I should say, but a lot, I would say, in the urban and inner city. And I know with me personally, is our brains are on fire. And so we're hyper vigilant because our brain is trying to protect us constantly because we don't have the resources or the education of understanding. And if you're feeling like that constantly, of course, you're going to continue to react.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, this is what happens. And so then, I remember having that attitude and be like, what? And, it took a lot of work to get to a place where now my nervous system is calm. And it's not from being woo-woo or new age, because that's one thing I hear a lot being me, like, that's new age. And I'm going, no, listen, look into the word. He made essential oils. It's all in the Bible.
Yeah, it is.
Look at how Daniel ended up surviving was because how he took away all the yucky stuff and just wanted him and his boys to have the good stuff. Like, you have power. God gave us what we need to be in this world. It's just, once again, it's some people that take that and want it to, they just become their own God, and then they just don't know how to treat others. And it's like teaching. We got to teach each other, how to love and have faith and respect and understanding and listen. Because that's why we have two ears and one mouth.
So now I've taken up double the time that you allotted to me. So I'm going to let you go, but we've got your website. It's www.throughthevalleytherapy.com. And we'll have that below our podcast so that people can get in touch with you if they want to talk.
Sure. Or follow me on Instagram, my social media or whatever. I mean, great. I'm a good listener, even though I did a lot of talking today. I promise.
You did good.
All right, Kathy, it was such a pleasure. And if this podcast starts, maybe we can collaborate on my podcast and try to figure out, because I'll have some certain questions and stuff too, just to.
Cool. That'll be fun.
Yes. All right. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the show. If you liked what you heard, please give us a 5-star rating or review on iTunes.